Welcome to Gemara Brachos, Daf 55. We're doing the top 10 teachings, and I want to dedicate this learning today in memory of Evelyn Udell, who just passed away this week, and I delivered the eulogy yesterday that is connected to the first of the top 10 teachings on the daf. So let's talk about what the top 10 teachings of the daf are. It's a fascinating page of Talmud. We're going to talk about the unconscious and about honor and leadership and the divine interactions between human appointees and our involvement in creating leaders, even if leadership is a God-given gift. And we're going to talk mostly about dreams. Okay, so let's take a look at the top 10 teachings. Okay, so here we go. The first teaching is the idea that the table of a person is considered an altar of forgiveness. And that being the case, the Talmud tells us the following thing: that Hamarich al Shulchano, it's about 6 lines from the top of 55a, somebody who has a long meal will have a long life. And the question is, why? And the Talmud says because during that period when the person will have an extended mealtime, less fortunate people, needy people, hungry people will be able to come and be included and have a good meal. In addition to that, the Talmud brings a proof text from a verse in Ezekiel that, based on that text, the Talmud deduces in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that as long as there was a temple, the altar served to effect atonement for Israel. But now that we don't have a temple, we don't have an altar, so how do we effect atonement? And the answer is through our table, through our meals. So the question is obvious. First, the question is, if the point of having a long meal is to give to the needy, to the hungry, why not just say whoever feeds the hungry is going to have a long life? Why make it about having a table? And the second question is, why is the table so important that we liken it to the forgiveness of the altar in the Beit HaMikdash? So, to understand this, let's first talk about a very well-known teaching in the Mishnah Torah of the Rambam, in which he says that the mitzvah of rejoicing, of V'samachta b'chagecha, of rejoicing on the Yom Tov, is not just to have good food and meat and a lively holiday table, but it's to invite the widow and the orphan and the destitute and the Levite to be part of that expression of physical joy of partaking in the festive meal. And if you don't include other people less fortunate than you in your Yom Tov celebrations, then the Rambam has some very choice negative words to say about you. It's just the celebration of your stomach, and there's nothing spiritual about it. There's nothing holy in it. So perhaps what the Rambam is a lot of people are like wondering, where does the Rambam get this from? Perhaps in part the Rambam's getting it from our Gemara. If the idea of a holiday is to elevate things, and on an actual holiday in the time of the temple, we would bring many offerings in the course of the holiday for various aspects of celebrating the holiday and so on and so forth. If the last thing we have is the celebration at our own table, so the least we can do is include other people. We used to include the Kohanim by giving certain offerings that they would partake in. And so presumably when we have the Yom Tov table, and now you pair that with this, it comes out that it's not just to eat, it's to be able to have other people participate. So that's point number A of number one. Point number two, or B of number one, because we're still in number one, is the table is most of the tractate, most of this wonderful, beautiful tractate. If it's not talking about a prayer and the Shema, it's talking about praise or brachot that we make often in the course of celebrating through food. The Birchat HaMazon, the Zimun, the Birchat HaNenen, the food that we make a bracha on before and after, the koshel bracha, the wine that we make the blessings on. So, and then of course you have the kashrut and other elements of refining who you eat with in terms of giving. So all of those things mean that your table is an opportunity to bless God with and to interact with other people in a meaningful, beautiful way. So that's point number B. Then C is that this is in a way better than charity. Because charity, there's something about accepting charity that can sometimes wear away at the recipient of the charity. But when you are part of somebody's dinner table or their lunch party, and you celebrate together with them as one, that's where friendship and love really grow. I mentioned the Udell family. That's a wonderful family that I'm very close to, and the patriarch Arthur and the matriarch of the family Evelyn, who just passed away, they had the most lavish festive meals on Shabbat, even during the week and the holidays, and I saw the friendships that would develop at these meals, and it's just so fascinating that I'm doing the same page of Talmud the week that this individual who really went all out and was the epitome of Hamarich b'Shulchano, somebody who, that couple would have these long, elaborate meals, so everybody had an opportunity to come. And it's not giving charity. It's greater than giving charity. It's creating community. It's creating friendships where even the person receiving doesn't feel they're receiving, because they're giving at the same time. You're adding with your personality. You're adding with your jokes, with your Dvar Torah. So nobody feels like they're taking something, and because of course we were, but we were grateful for it. But the thing that was even higher than a good meal was the love and the friendship that the meal ended up translating onto. So that's very reminiscent of the point of the altar. The altar is taking something and giving something, but it doesn't feel like taking and giving as much as transforming, creating out of the mundane something sacred, something greater than just the sum of its parts. And one other point is that this way, even when you end up not having guests, you want to have guests, you're open to having them, but they don't come, they don't show up. That means because you would like to share, It's as if every time you have a meal, it's as if you're sharing. That's called, in a Jewish word for that, is when you are borer, which means to refine. It is a halachic term in terms of what we do and don't do when we're sifting through food and removing the bad inedible parts of it on Shabbat, which is forbidden. But in this context, in the teachings of the Meshloach, it's some form of clarification that our purpose in sustaining our lives is not just for the sake of our own pleasure, but one where we understand that the pleasure and the sustenance of somebody else is also of great importance, and it's about sharing. So those are 4 points within all number 1 of the top 10 teachings of the Daf. Now we go on to number 2. The Talmud continues and says that a little bit down, about 15 lines from the top, in the name of the sage Rabbi Yehuda, that there are 3 things that if you do these things, they're not conducive to a long life, or if you don't do them, depending on what they are. So what are those 3 things? One is if you're given a Torah to read. Now, nowadays, you're given a Torah not to read. You're called up for an aliyah. The Gabbai comes over to you and says, what's your name? Are you a Kohen? Are you a Levi? Are you an Israelite? I'm going to give you the 3rd aliyah. What's your name? Okay. Your name is Yaakov ben Shmuel. They call you up, Yamod Yaakov ben Shmuel. And Yaakov ben Shmuel says, no. I don't want to get an aliyah. Talmud says, that's not good. If you're called to the Torah, you take it. It's disrespectful to the Torah not to accept the aliyah. Again, back then, getting an aliyah actually meant you actually read from the Torah, not just the blessings. But be that as it may, today we just call it getting an aliyah. The second thing that if you're asked, accept it if you want your life to be a blessing to long life, is koshel brachot. If somebody gives you the cup, they would often associate the leading of the birchot hamazon with receiving the cup at the end of the meal. You'd lead the grace after meals. Now, what's so powerful about this is that you make not just you do a mitzvah because you're leading the birchot hamazon, but you also get to bless the host and the hostess. So you get to give a bracha, you get to give a blessing. And there's a concept that kol hamivarech mitbarech, whoever gives a blessing receives a blessing. So you're giving and you're getting in return. And the third thing is v'hamani gatzmo berabanut, whoever becomes, or literally today, if you were reading it in modern Hebrew, rabbanut means you act like you're a rabbi. But in the time of the Talmud, rabbanut just meant powerful, a position of power. So somebody who acts like they need power, they need to be worshipped, or if not worshipped, but respected in a way that's above what they're really deserving. You have to earn the respect, not take and grab onto the respect and demand it. So those are the 3 things. Let's talk for a moment about those 3 things. There's a public element of being called to the Torah, and also there's a physical element. You go to the Torah. It's not about knowledge, because you just need to know how to read it, or at least make the aliyah. It's more about almost the physical interaction between you and the Torah. So and it's the communal nature of it. So there's something about being given an opportunity in public to embrace the Torah. And we say about the Torah, the commentators say that, actually not the commentators, I think the Talmud itself says, it quotes a verse in Deuteronomy, Ki hu chayecha ba'orech yamecha, for it is your life and the length of your days. Meaning the Torah is your life, it's the length of your days. So if you're given an opportunity to hold on to something which is life and which is a long life, grab it and take it. Do the aliyah, read the Torah. So the second thing is the koshel bracha. Now, part of what we're trying to do in life is clarify, as we talked about before, what are my intentions? What are my goals? So my goals are often twofold. I want to have a good life for myself. I want to enjoy life and have great things in life. I want to enjoy a great meal. A second thing I want to do is I want to be altruistic. I want to help other people. Then there's something a little bit in between, which is I want to have fun, enjoying life, while I'm in good company. It's a party, it's a bar mitzvah, it's a wedding, but I want to celebrate, and celebration is good. But when you make the blessing, what you do is you take a cup of wine, which is a very celebratory thing, and you transform it into kos shel bracha. You turn it into a cup, wine, exciting, fun, good for the body. I don't know. I mean, too much is not good, but the right amount might be good in the right time for the right person. Talk to your doctor, your therapist, and you convert it over into a bracha, how to enhance and bless somebody else. And when you do that idea of that transformation that's one of our goals in life, to bring together our physical enjoyment of the world and bettering the world, community. A community in a safe way, in a healthy way. So that's the second thing. The third thing is somebody who takes advantage of community and demands to be served in ways they don't necessarily respect. Now, this is going to lead us to two examples of where communal leadership failed at first and then only eventually worked itself out. And another example of communal leadership that really worked, that was beautiful. And the first one is going to be Betzalel. That's going to be the one that worked. And then the next one is going to be Joseph, and that's where we're going to get into dreams. And we'll talk all about Joseph and his dreams. That's going to be the major theme. But let's do number 3 and 4 are connected to Betzalel. Now, who was Betzalel? He was the chief builder, architect, planner of the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the desert, and which also went into the land of Israel, and that was modified at certain points, and then eventually we didn't have an actual Mishkan tabernacle. We actually went into different stages of an actual home, eventually the Beit HaMikdash, the first and second temple. But it's all based on certain measurements and certain concepts that were taught to Moses by God and implemented through Betzalel. Betzalel had this unique position of being a hero of the Sefer Yetzirah, a figure that was able to combine the kind of mystical realm and the architectural or realm of physics together, if you could say that. So he was kind of channeling divine energy into some form of science or building. So some people, for example, want to say that the Ark of the Covenant was a nuclear reactor. I don't think it's necessary to say that it was a nuclear reactor, but there was something mystical about the dimensions and the details of the tabernacle that somehow Betzalel was able to capture. And according to Rashi, he was combining divine names based on the Sefer Yetzirah to come up with these mystical dimensions, so to speak. So let's see what the Gemara says. That's kind of a general introduction to our section of the Gemara. So I just mentioned before the danger of grabbing a position of power without really being asked to take that position, without being afforded that position. And in that context, even though there might be a slight interruption of some other thing, but the Talmud basically says that you do not make a parnas. A parnas is like a leader of the community. Unless you first consult with the community. And the verse is based on this Exodus chapter 35 that says, Re'u kara Hashem b'shem B'Tzalel. Look, God is called out, and this does not sound like, it sounds like the Talmud is putting in the word b'shem B'Tzalel, an extra word in there. I'd have to look up the verse itself. And God said to Moses, look, what do you think about B'Tzalel? Is he good in your eyes? And Moses says to God, if it's good for you, then he's good for me as well. And then the Talmud says that Moses then went to the people and said, I would like B'Tzalel to be appointed over the construction of the Mishkan, but I would like your permission. So they said, okay, yeah, good. You know, he's good enough for God. He's good enough for us. So another rabbi says that the word B'Tzalel, which is a composite according to the Talmud of the word Sel and Kel, which is the shade of the divine, he got that name because of his unique wisdom. Because when God told Moses, go tell B'Tzalel to build for me a Mishkan, the tabernacle, the Aron, the ark, the Kelim, the vessels, Moses went and changed the order, and he told B'Tzalel, make the ark, make the vessels like the menorah and the table for the bread, and then he described the Mishkan, the tent itself. So B'Tzalel responded and said, the way of the world is first you build a home, then you put in the furniture. And yet you're telling me first make the furniture and then only afterwards make the home? Doesn't, you know, where would I even put this furniture, these divine vessels, once they're made and there is no place to put them yet? So maybe God actually told you to first make the Mishkan and then make the vessels. So Moses responded, maybe B'Tzel El Hayisa V'Yadata, maybe you were already there. You were in the shade of the divine. So you know what God told me because you're divinely inspired as well. So, and that's where Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Rav, says that B'Tzalel knew how to combine the Otiot Shenivru Behen Shemayim V'Aretz. He knew how to take the letters of the Aleph Beis, the letters that the world was created with, and he knew how to combine them and to recreate in a divine manner. And as I mentioned before, that Rashi mentions Adei Tzirufin U'B'Sefer Yitzira Tanilu, that he was able to make these combinations of these letters, and it's based on the mystical work of the Sefer Yitzira. Okay, so question: why did Moses change the order? Why did Moses? What was this, a test? Simple answer is yes. He wanted to see if this person was inspired, and there's a reason why. Even if you need somebody who listens to instructions, it's important that they understand things more than just the instructions. Because what was the first thing B'Tzalel did? He didn't listen to Moses. He asked a question. He said, what the world normally does is the opposite. Plus, where would we even put these things? And then number 3, he said, is, are you sure God told it to you in the order you're telling it to me? So he basically challenged Moses, but in a very respectful way. So instead of it being like other challengers that went up against Moses that had a very terrible ending, like Korach and his Dasan and Aviram, these other rebels, B'Tzalel is quite the opposite. He does challenge Moses, but with respect and integrity. So he represents an intelligent person who doesn't just follow orders blindly and do the wrong thing because they didn't really understand what it was that what their assignment really is, because they just listened to the words and not to the inner what's really needed here. So let's think for a moment of why Moses could have done this other than just simply a test. And the answer might be that what's the purpose of the tabernacle? It is the Aron and the Kalim. It is the Ark of the Covenant, which represents this tremendous divine revelation, and it represents the vessels such as the altars and the menorah, that each one represent a significant level of whether it's atonement or divine presence. Tremendous things are going on. So even though technically speaking you would need to start with the Mishkan before you got to the Kalim, but the whole purpose is to have a place to put the Kalim. So why don't we first describe the vessels, and then we'll describe the house that they'll go in, but the purpose of it is the vessels. And so is this just a simple recalibration where Betzalel says, yeah, of course the vessels are the point, but we got to go in order. There's one, step one is the Mishkan, step two are the vessels. Or it could be the following. It could be that if you think about it, the very idea of a vessel is a vessel for something that's beyond it. So within the framework of the Mishkan, the vessels within the Mishkan are like the inwardness, the avoda, the service of the sanctuary of the Mishkan, were done through the vessels, through the mizbeach, through the altar, through the menorah. And what's the Mishkan itself, the tent, the physical walls of the Mishkan, and so on? Those are the vessels for the vessel. So what Betzalel is saying is, in architecture, it's all about the vessel. What will fill it will come next. So the first vessel is not the vessels, the kalim, but the home itself. So let's focus first and foremost on the home. Then, of course, we know the home needs furniture, and the purpose is to use this elevated furniture to bring down the Shekhinah. So that was his response. Okay, that could be a deeper understanding of the conversation. But beyond a deeper understanding of the conversation is also, again, about the nature of leadership and wisdom. And now that leads us to number 4, directly into number 4. Number 4 is that God only gives wisdom to the wise. And how do we know this? From Betzalel. And the Talmud goes on and says, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu nosen chachma el mi sheyesh bo chachma. God only gives wisdom to somebody who already has wisdom. And he brings one proof text for that. And then the Gemara brings an additional proof text from Uvalev Kol Chacham Lev Nasati Chachma. It's within the context of building the tabernacle, I believe, pretty sure, that God says, I've given to the hearts of the wise wisdom in the context of building the tabernacle. In other words, when there's a wise person, God will rest his Shekhinah and give additional wisdom. The obvious question is, if God-given wisdom is a gift from God only to the wise, how do you become wise to begin with? The simple answer could be that there's 2 levels of wisdom. The first level of wisdom is intelligence. The second level of wisdom is divine intelligence, and there's a relationship between the two. Okay. Another answer found in numerous sources, notably in the Mei Shiloach and the Pri Tzadik, but might have appeared in earlier sources as well, that there's a concept of Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem, which is the beginning of wisdom, is to be God-fearing. So it doesn't necessarily mean a high IQ, but it means the fear of God is the beginning, is the prerequisite to wisdom. The Mei Shiloach explains this in the following way. You can't obtain very much, spiritually speaking, without the fear of God. And he likens it to the way I understand it, I'm giving my own twist on it, is a savings account. You don't make money by opening up a savings account. because if you don't have any money to put in the savings account, you're not going to have a lot of money. But if you don't have the concept of being able to save, you'll never have money. It doesn't matter how much you make, you don't have a place to put it. You make it, you spend it. The idea of here's going to be the money, and then maybe I'll invest some of it in stocks or in a retirement fund. It starts with the concept of saving money. And then you could find better ways and higher interest rates and so on and so forth. People in the financial world will explain it. But if the concept of there is no such thing as a bank, a place to put your money, then how are you going to make money from that money? You're just going to lose it or spend it. So that's what Yirat Hashem, the fear of God, it's the beginning of wisdom. It's the beginning of growing spiritually, because you could even love God and make good on a spiritual connection for a time in your relationship with God based on love. But if you don't have the awe of God, that love will dissipate and you won't be able to hold on to it. And therefore, you'll lose whatever you even have. Therefore, the fear of God is your spiritual bank in which you can build great spiritual wealth on, including wisdom that God gives to those who are already wise, who have the work that they've already done to be God-fearing. That's number 4. I'll just add on one thing to that. We see with winners of the lottery that often they win millions of dollars, and they had no money before the lottery. They were poor, and then the time that they have, got the money is run out, and a number of years later they'll be back to having no money at all. And the question is why? They won millions of dollars. Why would they be able to go through all of that money and not be able to hold on to it? And the answer is that they don't have wisdom of managing money and how to deal with money. They didn't have a way of saving, meaning it wasn't their mindset. They didn't know what to do with it. So they got this money and they ended up spending it and not knowing how to allocate it properly. So that's the idea, that God gives wisdom to the wise. The truth is there are some people who have momentary brilliance, so to speak, but they don't, for true wisdom to manifest in a way that it's not just like a lottery that there's easy come, easy go. You have to already have this combination of your own wisdom and divine wisdom. That's number 4. Now we get to number 5. The Talmud. Now we get into Joseph. We're going to get into dreams. Almost everything else we're going to do today are going to be about dreams. And the Talmud tells us on the bottom of 55a, the name of Rabbi Yochanan, quoting Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that every dream has some wheat and some like straw in it, some like not nutrient thing, not non-nutritious thing in it. And he brings a verse for that. And just like the way it works is you're going to have grain mixed in with chaff or chaff, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, so too when it comes to dreams, you're going to have some dvarim b'telim, some silly things that are never going to, not true things. Or in the name of another sage, Rabbi Brachot, that there isn't a dream that doesn't have a part of it that won't be fulfilled. Even if it's a true dream, there's going to be some part that won't happen. And where do we know this from? We know this from Joseph. Okay? So many of the following teachings, either they relate in the Talmud to Joseph, even if they don't, I'm going to try to connect many of the next number, not all, but many of the next remainder, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, to Joseph. Where do we find falseness or something that didn't happen in Joseph's dream? So if you remember, the famous dream of Joseph is that the 11, the stars, was it 10 stars or 11 stars, were bowing to him, and the sun and the moon were bowing to him. But we know that his mother had passed away. And the fact that he saw and the 11 stars were bowing to him, we see that there was a part of the dream that wasn't true because his mother already had died. What's interesting to note is Rashi on that verse actually says that even when his father questioned him about the dream, when he said, "Havo navo ani va'imecha," will I and your mother come and bow down to you? In other words, your mother's not even alive, so it's impossible. But yet he was Vaviv Shamar Sadavar. He was still guarding this. Rashi suggests that even though Rachel, his biological mother, was no longer alive, Bilhah, who had raised him, was like a mother to him. So it didn't have to literally be his biological mother. So interestingly enough, what we're already hearing is that the whole dream could happen, just not in its most obvious way, which is one of the basic principles of like Freudian psychology, is that you're going to see things are going to be symbolic, and not just symbolic. Sometimes they're going to be hidden from you because your consciousness can't deal with that. So we'll get more into the Freudian dream analysis and how that does or doesn't jive with the Talmud later. But that's first of all just a question.
Reading.
That's just a question. Okay, thank you. So that's a question of how we reconcile this Talmud with that Rashi. Now, there is an interesting answer that's given by the Arvei Nachal. And the Arvei Nachal says that Joseph was dreaming in doubles. And we know that there's two angels that bring us dreams when you're getting a positive dream from an angel, Michal and Gabriel. And Michal, I believe, is the one whose dream is going to come true quickly, but inaccurately in some details. And Gabriel is the one whose dream is going to come true in much later in time, but accurately. So based on that, he tries to kind of reconcile the Talmud with Joseph's dream. But as interesting as it is and it's fascinating, I would like to go with the teachings of the Mea Shiloach, the Ishbitzer Rebbe. And I'd like to say the following, based on the Mea Shiloach. Eventually, we're going to get to more details in the next two dafim about dreams. Let's just say at this point that Joseph, the problem with Joseph is that his brothers feel that his dreams are based on his ambitions. So they're not necessarily impressed that his dreams are what's really divinely inspired as much as his ego. That's why they're arguing with him and not saying things at all his way at all. And they're insulted, they're deeply insulted. So they're looking at the dream and they're looking at things that are inaccurate. Now, you could always come up with any explanation that you want to make it accurate. That's possible, but doesn't mean it's so. But if you're insisting it's still accurate, without it reading well into the dream, your whole dream might be under suspicion. So let's go to number 6 to see that more specifically. So number 6 is on 55b. And it says the following, about 15 lines at the top. Rabbi Yochanan says, if somebody has a dream that distresses them, they should go before 3 people, and the 3 people should interpret it. And the Gemara challenges that, but it's known that if you don't interpret a dream, it's not going to hurt you. But if you interpret a dream, it goes after its interpretation. So, because it's like a letter. If you don't read the letter, it's like, so what? But once you interpret it, it has some validity. So why would you want people to interpret your dream? If it's already distressing you, they're interpreting it is going to actualize it and harm you even further. So rather than say interpret it, say yativenu. The 3 people should sweeten the dream, make it good, in front of 3 people. So what is that? That they should say chama tavachazoi. The person who had the dream should say, I saw a good dream, and the 3 people should respond, yes, tavahu b'tevel have it was good and it should be good. Rachmana l'shavi l'tav, God should make it be good. 7 times. Now it's a question whether they say this 7 times or they just mention 7 times within this thing. That it should be decreed upon you from heaven that it should be good, and it should be good. And then they should say 3 sets of 3 things: 1 of turning it around, 1 of redemption, or 3 of each of these things, and 3 of peace. And then it brings 3 verses of each of these things that are appropriate to be said. Okay, so what's going on here is as follows. We know that there's validity to dreams when you interpret it. So the safest thing you could do is go to 3 friendly people, have them in advance tell you the things you want to hear. And now the truth is, the best thing would be is if you had a good friend who was good at dream interpretation, and they know they wouldn't want to harm you, and they could actually interpret the dream in a positive way and explain it to you. That would be the best thing, I think, because then you'd gain insight and you'd learn something, and you'd go away feeling inspired. But since we don't normally have that, and even if they're 3 rabbis, you don't want to tell me what it really means, because what if they interpret it in a way that's not so good? So you want to go to 3 rabbis who are going to tell you this, or 3 lay people who are who are good people, who will read the Nusa for the Hatavat Chalam. I'm going to read it for you. Let me take a look in the Art School Siddur and see what it says here. A malloration of dreams. Okay, so they do the 7 times. It's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, in some of the commentators, I think, like the Magen Avraham, that you don't need to do the 7 times, that they understand that it's not meant to be recited 7 times. So here the person should say, Chama Tavachazai, I have seen a good dream. And the respondents say, you have seen a good dream, it is good, may it be good, may the merciful one transform it to the good, may it be decreed upon it 7 times from heaven, that it become good and always be good. It is good, and may it always be good. So, again, it's really a contradiction. If you're saying that may it decreed 7 times in heaven, doesn't mean you need to recite it 7 times. So some people just recite it 3 times. But the article says 7 times. Why not, right? Then you quote, they quote the Talmudic passages. Hafachta mispri l'machali, pitachta sakv'tazeni simcha. This would be said, the bold type is said by the dreamer. You have changed me from my lament into dancing. You undid my sackcloth and girded me with gladness. And they respond, then the maidens shall rejoice and dance, and lads and elders together, and I shall change their mournings to joy. I shall console them and gladden their sorrow, etc. So, and this is just like God transformed what Bilam wanted to do and made them into blessings. So we have this idea of transforming something from sadness into joy. And it continues. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is something I've participated a number of times. I don't know if I've ever done it myself as the dreamer, but I've definitely done this a number of times with people who had dreams that they wanted people to do. So it shows you that the rabbis, even though on the one hand they said, as long as it's not interpreted, it can't hurt you, they still said, they understood people were bothered by it. So the main thing they had at that time was there was a fast called Tainus Chalom. When somebody had a very bad dream, they would fast for it. But the secondary thing would be this Hatavat Chalom, this making good out of the dream. So that's number 6. And I'll just tell you what the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, one of the main students of the Baal Shem Tov, said in regards to this, and how it connects to Joseph. When Joseph told his brothers the 2 dreams, after the second dream, it says, "V'yosifu od seno osa achalamotza ba'al diburav." They hated him. They hated him even more on his dreams and on his words. What does that mean, on his words? So according to the way the Talmud just introduced this concept that the dreams go after their interpretation, what their hatred for Joseph is, who gives you the right to interpret your own dreams in a way that makes you that has you lord over us? Which is why, by the way, one of the proof texts I forgot to mention earlier, that being a powerful person and demanding authority is unhealthy for a long life is from Joseph, because he was a viceroy to the king, and he died younger than any of his brothers. That was in the daf. I just mentioned it. So this is really all a continuation of that. That's saying their criticism of his was, you had the dream fine, but why do you have to interpret it like that? First of all, you had the dream because you only dream about things that you think about, and second of all, why are you interpreting it like that to make yourself grab power? So that makes that again still connects these teachings to Joseph. That's number 6. Now we go to number 7, and number 7 is Birchat Kohanim. This is fascinating. The Gemara says the following in the middle of the page. A bunch of rabbis gathered together, and they said, let's each one of us say something new that the others don't know. And one of them says, if you see a bad dream and you don't really know what it is that you saw, you know you had a bad dream, but you don't know the details, you should stand before the Kohanim when they spread their hands. The Kohanim, they do that thing when they're giving Brachas Kohanim, and during the course of the Brachas Kohanim, doesn't say exactly when, but the commentators, the Shulchan Aruch and so on, do talk about when to say it. Should say, Ribbon Shel Olam, Master of the world, Ani Shalach v'Chalamasi Shalach, Chalamasai Shalach. I am yours, my dreams are yours. Chalom chalamti v'nei yodea mahu. I dreamt a dream and I don't know what it is. Ben shechalamti ani al atzmi, whether I dreamt it regarding myself, ben shecham al li chaveri, ben shechalamti al achem, whether it was a dream that others dreamt in regards to me, or I dreamt about others. Im tovim hem chaskem v'amsem kechlamotav shel Yosef. If they're good, strengthen them. Make them like the dreams of Joseph. Im shrichim refuah refaim. If they need healing, heal them. Kemei mar al yedei Moshe Rabbeinu k'mir mitzarata k'chizkiyahu Michayahu. Like the bitter waters of Mara through Moses, or like Miriam from her tzarat and Chizkiah from his illness. Okay, and then it continues. Yericha al yedei Elisha, or kashem shafach tichlos bilam marashal levachak v'ken hapoch kol chalamotai alad the Toba. I hope I didn't mispronounce these words. There's no vowels in the Gemara. God should transform the dream from into the good, like He has transformed the curses of Bilam, the wicked, into blessings. And you conclude this when, as the Kohanim are getting, finishing and getting a responsive Amen from the community. So here, there's a discrepancy in certain customs here. First of all, let's talk about when we do this, because in Chutz La'aretz, most people, not all, only do Birchat Kohanim on Yantif. There are some Sparta communities who actually do it every day. They make more sense halachically to do the Birchat Kohanim every day. There's not really, there are halachic rationale of why not to do it every day, but it's really a big chiddush, a big thing that the Ashkenazim don't do it every day. In Eretz Yisrael, many communities do it every day. So, first of all, the Magen Avraham quotes one of the sages that say, no, this only works if you have the bad dream that night. This is the next day. It doesn't work a day later, a week later, a month later. And the Magen Avraham says, no, well, if that's the case, why is there a custom to say it on the Yom Tovim? And did everyone have a bad dream on the first night of Yantif or the second night of Yantif? So he says, no, you could say it after the dream, however long. But most people don't have the custom to say this. The people who do say the daily Birchat Kohanim do not say this every day. Almost no one says this every day. I don't know if anyone would say this every day. So that's a little bit about the halacha. The other thing is, when do you say it? When do you say it? Do you say it just once, or do you say it more than once? So if you look, let's say, at the art scroll, and by the way, that's also the preferred time to say it is when there's the ayayais. When you don't have to say it at the same moment the Kohen is saying the actual word of Birchat Kohanim, as much as the ayayayayayayayayayay, or some other tune that the Kohanim and the person leading the Kohanim, the Chazan, that's call and responses are doing. So let's take a look at the Siddur again and see what it says here in the Art Scroll Siddur. It says it has this all three times. I know in Nusach Hari they only do this at the end. Why you would need to say it three times, whatever. Then there's a custom to say afterwards, Adir b'marom shochem b'gvura tashalom v'shimcha shalom. So that's also there as well. So that's a little bit about Birchat Kohanim, Chutz La'aretz versus Eretz Yisrael, and this special nusach of transforming our dreams and making them positive. Now we go to number 10. Oh, no. That was number... I'm sorry. That was number 7, I think. Is that number 7? Yeah, that was number 7. Now we go to number 8. Skipped. Very eager here. Too eager. Number 8 is Rava. The first day he was sick, wouldn't tell anybody. The second day he was sick, he would tell people. But here's the rationale that the Gemara gives for that. He would tell his attendant, go and announce that Rava is sick. Those who love me will pray on my behalf for mercy on my behalf. And those who hate me will be happy. And there's a verse that says, when your enemy falls, don't rejoice. Because perhaps God will see and it'll be bad in his eyes. And he'll turn away his anger from them. So it seems like there's the obvious reason why you don't want to tell people that you're sick is because if you actually have people who don't like you, you don't want them being rejoicing that you're sick. But here he actually says the opposite. If they rejoice in your illness, God will take mercy on you. So why doesn't he pay attention? Why not start off right away? Why not first thing as soon as you get sick, go have it announced so they could pray for you right away? It's almost like there's two elements of an illness. Again, I'm not an expert on illness, so excuse me if there are people who know much more than me and say, "What is he talking about?" That's not how I experience illness. So please forgive me in advance. So I'm only speaking from my limited experience, and I know that that's very limited. There's people who are really ill and have gone through so much, and I total respect for their suffering, and God should send them healing. But what I want to bring out here is that you have one experience where you're literally fighting for your life, and it's a solitary thing. It's because when you are alone with your own illness, and you need to get help, or you need to just get better enough to want people to visit you or bless you. It is very alone, and that's part of what it is that you go through, this aloneness of just nobody knows. Nobody knows you're hurt. Nobody knows you're sick. Then once that initial phase, again, he's saying it's one day, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week. After that phase, then you're already sick, and you're sick, and I live in society, so I need other people. I need them to come visit me. I need them to bring me chicken soup. I need them to take care of business that I might have been in the middle of, check up on things that are important, and I need them to pray. And then, I have enemies. What am I going to do about that? So that's the second stage. So I'd like to suggest that Rava, when he's suggesting that, is saying that there's a natural progression to illness. And even when it comes to including other people and praying for us, we give a little bit of time just to be in the illness as a solitary person, just fighting for their life and being sick on their own. And then we share our pain and hope most people are compassionate and pray. And those who are not, that itself, that the hurt that somebody could have, that ill feelings towards us, that's also a way that God will forgive us and be nice to us and actually heal us. It's a beautiful idea, and that makes sense after we talked about the bad dreams turning into good. It's about transformation. So we're talking about prayer and transformation in terms of dreams and in terms of illness. That's number 8. Number 9 is there's two types of dreams, the Talmud says, and some of them are going to be fulfilled and some of them are not. The dream, or some of them are full of hogwash, and some of them are not. So what is it based on? If it's coming through an angel, you're seeing good stuff, and if it's coming through a shade, which is a demon, then you're going to hear a lot of hogwash in the dream. So the beauty of a dream is, where are you tapping into? Are you tapping into the angelic realm? Are you or God forbid, into the realm of darkness? And they both have tremendous power. The problem with the power of the other side, of the dark side, is it's inaccurate. And there's beautiful, powerful Zohars that talk about people who want to get with the dark side so that they can have access to being revealed truths in dreams. And the Zohar says, be careful. This Gemara is still something to reckon with. You might be getting false information. Even if you got some accurate information, you're going to get some false information, ultimately trip you up. Besides the fact that being associated with evil, you don't want to sell your soul to the devil, so to speak. Okay, that was number 9. Number 10 is very important because it's going to bring us back to Joseph. So the Talmud says that dreams are nothing more than what you think about during the day. Whatever you're preoccupied with, it's going to come back as a dream. Now, we know that's not always just where dreams are, but that's a big deal. So this would explain exactly what was going on in the fight between Joseph and his brothers. According to the Meshaloach, the following thing happened. They knew that their father had a dream about the ladder, Jacob's ladder. And they knew he would always reference that dream, and that was his life's most inspiring peak moment that he led his whole life with. Comes Joseph, their little brother, and he's like a twerp. And he has a dream. What's his dream? It's not about spirituality. It's not about serving. It's not about the ladder and so on. It's about how great he is. So they said, you're nothing. You're a nobody. You aspire to be powerful, and you dreamt about your own power because that's all you think about during the day. You daydream about ruling us, and then you night dream also about it. We're not impressed. They didn't know that at the kernel of his dream there was truth. They didn't know that, so they fought with him, and so on. And the rest is history. Hope you enjoyed, and have a great day.